Alright, so we had started a new module, which is our second module. We had finished our first module where we particularly looked at principles governing management of finances, or the principles that you are supposed to use when it comes to the management of your finances as you begin to implement your given project. Now we continue, and we in our next module, which is our second module, the one which we are looking at, we will be focused more on seeing how we can be able to estimate or make cost estimations. Now I remember we had already introduced what we meant by estimation. By estimation, we're simply trying to predict. Okay, we're simply just trying to predict the value of our given costs. And in our previous class, I remember we came across the two different approaches that you can be able to take with regards to making cost estimations. All right, so the first approach that we looked at is an approach that was known as the top-down cost estimation. And under the top-down cost estimation, we said that this is the approach or the type of cost estimation where we begin by looking at the project completion, or we visualize the project to have been already completed. Okay. Okay. All right. Then after we visualize that the project has already been completed, then we can begin to make estimates based on a completed project. And one of the way we can make those estimates is by making a comparison. Okay, a comparison of a similar project that was conducted or has been conducted similar to our project. And then from there we can be able to derive total estimations. And then we said the weakness of this approach is that it does not really take into account the details, okay, of the small components or activities or vices that will be involved in estimating, in implementing our given project. Therefore, it is known as the top-down project because it considers the aggregate, okay, component of the project when it comes to estimation of the project cost. Then after that, we had already talked about the second or the other approach, which is known as the bottom top estimation procedure. Okay, so this one we said it is the one where we first come up with a compilation of all the activities and events that will be required in the implementation of the project. Then from there we can begin to estimate the cost it will cost us for each given activity. So what we do is we can look at the quotations from other projects that were given for those same activities, and then we can use those to estimate the cost for each given activity. And then once we are done, then we can be able to sum up and make it total estimation by adding all the estimated cost for each given activity that we have compiled and listed down, thereby being able to make a total estimate cost for our entire completed project. So bottom top, we start with the details of the individual activities, and then after we estimate those, we add them together so that we can get the total costs of the entire project. Whilst top bottom, we start by first just looking at the total cost that can be spent on a given project by comparing our projects to other projects that are similar to ours, and then we begin to look at how we can break down that cost that we have estimated for these small details or activities that will be required in the project that we want to implement. Now, we have got a lot of templates for cost estimating tables or formulas. And in this module, we have got an example of a cost estimating sheet that we can be able to employ and use for our estimation of costs. So now, if you are following with me on the screen here, there's a table, okay, which is labeled as cost estimate format or form that you can be able to use by filling out various details of your given project that you want to implement. If you can see, under the first row, it has indicated project number or sales reference compiled by. This, of course, will be the name of the person that is in charge under the finance department with regards to estimation of costs. Then here we have got estimate number, where you get to indicate the total estimate number, the case, the date, and then the page number of this given form or format. Then here you indicate specifically what it is that you are estimating. Okay, estimate for, so you indicate. And then as you keep scrolling down here, we have got the first column here, which is code, and then also the second column, which is the item. So here the item can have a code. Each item that you indicate under the item column should be able to have a code. So for example, the first item here, if it is sand, you must be able to give it a code. And then apart from that, we have quantity, where you get to indicate the units of measurement for the amount of the item that you have procured or intend to procure for your given project. Then you move on, you begin to now indicate the estimated hours. Okay, so maybe if it is not sand, we can indicate maybe it's an activity. If the first activity, maybe let's say, has to do with bricklaying, you indicate the number of hours, and then you also indicate the amount you'll be paying for those hours. If maybe let's say it is 1 hour here, you indicate, okay, so for 1 hour, this is how much we are going to be paying. Okay, and then you move on. For other hours, you just keep on indicating, and so on and so forth. And then once you are done indicating, at the end here, we have got what is known as the total direct labor cost. Okay, so here this is where you get to add and come up with the total cost that you are going to spend on labor under the given activity and item. So here you can indicate, for example, the item was maybe let's say it was a shovel, isn't it? Or maybe um, we can say sand. I'm trying to think of a project that we can be able to use so that we can properly be able to insert the details in this format. So okay, let's say maybe the project has to do with it's a commission based project, and then this project has to do with dealing with the customers. Okay, so I will say the item here simply has to do with the customer service. Okay, and then we indicate the quantity to say, okay, so the quantity will be maybe let's say 100 customers in this given day. Okay, and then we begin to charge to say per hour, this is how much that will be given. Okay, and then for each of these hours, they are being represented by different employees. Okay, so we've got employee number 1 here, you indicate. Okay, employee number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and then together you calculate how much each one was able to spend on the customers, and then at the end here you end up calculating the direct labor cost. And then apart from that, since you had already indicated the quantity here, you must be able to also indicate if there were some overhead costs. Okay, and then Once you do that, you must be able to indicate down there under this row. And then apart from labor costs, we also have got other costs that are materials, isn't it? Materials costs. So I don't know how we can be able to fit our project here under materials. Okay, we can say maybe, let's say, the power, the money that was spent towards maybe the internet, and also maybe let's say talk time, and so on and so forth. Okay, all right. So after you are able to indicate those materials down here, then you can also add the total cost. So here you have projected the total cost for labor, and then here you have also projected the total cost for materials. All right, so we have got another format here, which is used for estimating of costs for materials and also purchased equipment. So for this one, it's a little bit different, but nonetheless, it is also used for estimation of costs. So here you can indicate cost code. So for example, you have an item here, you describe what item it is, and then you give it a code, isn't it? And then here, the proposed supplier or the person who you intend to buy from should be indicated, and then the number of units that you intend to buy, and then the cost per unit, and then the currency that you'll be using to purchase in. You look at also the exchange rate, and then converted unit costs, quantity, which is simply the amount, project unit costs, ship mode, okay, foreign freight costs, taxes and duties, and then also delivered costs. All right, so for now we shall just look at the skeleton part. Then I think what we can do is, because I'm trying to think of projects that I can be able to use so that we can be able to implement, but I think I'll give this as an assignment. You guys should be able to go and think of projects that you can be able to use so that you can be able to do your cost estimate using either one of the formats. Okay. Hey, it's like I scrolled down a lot. Kept on scrolling. All right. So those were examples of forms that you can use for estimation of costs. Now, personal estimating characteristics. So project cost estimating is never an exact science. Much of the process, particularly when estimating labor times, has to rely on subjective judgment of the individuals. All right, so now as we are doing our estimation, those that we started with, if you remember, I talked about the difference between a science and also an art. Okay, so project management in its entirety is simply an art. Okay, in that it does not just require you to have formulas or laid down structures or framework to follow for you to be able to achieve certain duties. It will also require you to be able to implement your own personal judgments as you see things fit. So here what they're trying to say is when it comes to estimation, there will always be a component of personal subjective judgment, okay, that you must be able to employ so that you can be able to properly estimate and also be able to quantify the cost for each given labor activity or time. So we can say as you are coming up with the labor times that will be required for given activities. It is you yourself who is supposed to know based on your experience, your exposure, and then also your knowledge. You must be able to come up to say, okay, so for these activities, I'll be giving them this amount of time, and then for this amount of time, I'll be charging this amount of money. All right, so then we have got different classification of estimators. So we have got the first one, which is optimistic estimators. Now put this in mind that it is being linked to personal or individual judgment, isn't it? So your judgment can be based on either these two types of classification of estimation. So the first one is known as optimistic estimators. So if you are an optimistic estimator, this is what you are more likely to possess. So a general rule under optimistic estimator is that it can be taken that estimates for any work will more frequently be understated than overstated. Okay, usually the optimistic will overstate the time, cost, without leaving a room of unforeseen eventualities. Okay, so the optimistic estimator is someone who always tries to estimate the cost that will be a little bit more than what is expected. Okay, the reason why they do this is they want to ensure that in case things, maybe let's say the prices of resources or products that we want to buy goes up in the future, since in our estimation we have already made a predictment. Sorry about that. We have already made a predicament that cost might be hiked, or the prices of our product might be hiked by this amount. When that happens, since you had already made that, it will be easy, especially if your hiking was relatively high. It will be easier for you to be able to come and cater for that incident or situation. So an optimistic estimator, or under optimistic estimation, we tend to overstate the prices. Okay, all right. Then now we have got the other classification of estimation, which is known as the pessimistic estimator or estimation. So unlike the optimist, okay, the optimist who usually underestimate, okay, to say, okay, this amount of prices we have seems to be low, let's try to hike them higher. The pessimist feels like the prices are too high, so let's try to lower them. Okay, in our prediction, of prices is a little bit too high, so let's try to reduce them or economize them. Okay, so these two are just like the opposite school of thoughts or classifications that you can be able to use under your personal judgment of cost estimation. So unlike the optimist of more customary experience, can be relied upon to overestimate more tasks. This characteristic is not particularly common, and when seen, it might pay to investigate the underlying cause. Possibly the estimator lacks experience or is incompetent. Okay, so here is doubting because maybe due to lack of exposure, and maybe it's not that much competent, and so on and so forth. Then we have got the other classification of estimation. We have got what is known as the inconsistent estimator. So here we find a person who is seemingly incapable of estimating any job at all, giving answers that range over the whole spectrum from ridiculous pessimism to ridiculous optimism. Right, so here they're simply just talking about a person who is undecisive. They don't know where they fall between pessimism and optimism. So you have to be able to either strike a balance or fall on either side. Otherwise, if you are undecided, you are not really sure, okay, you are taking long to make that decision, or you keep on switching and changing. You overestimate the prices, then tomorrow you come back, you underestimate, again tomorrow you overestimate. It will affect how your project is going to progress. Okay, so this one is known as the inconsistent estimator. The only characteristic reliable displayed is inconsistency. And then the problem with inconsistency is that your plan itself that you have presented, if you have presented a project plan to your investors, since you keep on changing, then it will be unreliable, and your investors or your sponsors won't be able to have much confidence in you. So today you say, okay, no, the price for this and this that will be required will be this. Tomorrow you come back, you come and change. It will look like you are not really sure, or you don't know exactly what it is that you are looking for or what you want to do or achieve. Then we have got the accurate estimator. So it has to be allowed that there is a possibility, however remote, of finding a manager capable of providing estimates that prove to be consistently accurate when the work actually takes place. This contingency is so remote that it can almost be discounted. Okay, so the accurate estimator simply is someone who has got a lot of experience, okay, has got a lot of experience to the point that they are capable of estimating accurate results. Okay, although they are rare, but they are capable of coming up with accurate results for the estimation of costs that will be required in your given project that you want to implement. All right, so for our class today, this is where we shall end. Then we shall come and continue in our next class.